Hey everybody, welcome into steampunkpsyche. Tonight I want to talk about, yeah, it is about 8:15 p.m. for me, but tonight I want to talk about the collective. You see how I said that? Just real cinematic like. The collective. And to do this, I think it's very important that we enter into the collective scene. That's right. In order to take part of the collective, you must set the tone, right? So I'm going to use some of my magic. I was a little slow. Wait, I'll try that again. Wait. Oh, shoot. Dang it. Maybe my collective magic's off. What the hell? Whatever. Okay, so anyway, here are some images for you to check out if you get bored um, while I'm talking. You can just look over at those and be like, yeah, yeah. Oh, cool pictures, though. The collective, what is it? You know, everybody talks about it. It's all over the internet. Every tarot reader knows, seems to know. Every mystic, every esoteric channel that you possibly can see, and all of a sudden the collective. I'm going to be real honest with you, okay? I've got a channel about tarot. I've got a channel about archetype. See, I'm an Okie, so I can say archetype. Um, but just because I'm here in Okie, you know what I mean, Oklahoma, I don't, doesn't mean I doesn't mean I don't have any right to know. What I'm getting at is that there's so much information on the internet, right? I gotta be honest with you though, not a single word of this stuff did I ever hear when I was growing up. And I'm gonna guess that probably the majority of you that are my age, I'm not gonna reveal it, you're just gonna have to guess. Oh, wait a minute, I have a video on how old I am. I'm 53. But not a single one. Now, archetypes, I did hear about, Greek mythology archetypes, Vedic archetypes. Um, but it was not in the mainstream, okay? And the only way you were able to go see a tarot reader is if you knew somebody who lived in a house down the road and one of your friends' mom was a tarot reader. In fact, I had one. And and it was because that was not a very, divination, right? Ooh. So in the societal view at the time, it was, considered to be, you know, no, you can't do that. So none of this was available. I mean, like mainstream. It was just not an available topic. Now, in the late '60s, during my dad's time, there was a kind of a revolution where it was brought a lot of the European traditions and things like that, and Western traditions were brought over. Um, Carl Jung and um, you know, yeah, a lot of the philosopher and philosophies were brought into the United States, and then it kind of grew from there. But yet, it wasn't something that was just talked about. So now, in the age of the internet, it's just everywhere. We're inundated by it all. So it's very confusing, as a spiritual person. Like, which path do I choose? Which one do I go with? There's so much, and if you've if you've been down that road, that rabbit hole of spirituality, it can be very overwhelming, right? Yeah, yeah. Because you can get so far in it, and then they start naming names, and you're like, "Ooh, I want to check that out and see who that is." And then it goes this way and left, and before you know it, you've just curtailed off into some realm of something that's like, whew, okay, maybe that's more for people with ADHD. Maybe it's just me. But I did that. I spiraled out of control and went down every rabbit hole there was. I'm kind of like the jack of all trades of spirituality, master of none. That used to be kind of an insulting thing to say to somebody. But I feel like everybody out there is kind of a little bit of a jack of all trade and a master of none. Okay? You can't possibly be the master of 7 different religious aspects. Come on now. And I'm not begging you to choose one. But I am saying that, you know, if you're, 15 years old on the internet giving me advice about spirituality, we're going to need to talk. All I'm saying. Life teaches us lessons. We know this. You know what I mean? Life teaches a lot of the lessons, spirituality, and so what does all this mean, right, dude? You're just spewing. Yes, I am. I'm just spewing. But what I'm trying to get at is that okay? So after multiple uh divorces and after a life of just I'm not I don't even understand what's going on in my life and a early stage of recklessness, chaos, turmoil, all of this stuff started to make sense to me, like what those archetypes really meant in my life. Neville Goddard has a lot of good information like that. And like I said, I'm not trying to promote just Neville Goddard's information, but I really kind of like the way he used the archetypes in a way, especially when it came to the Christian, Bible. And I'm not choosing one over the other. That's not what I'm getting at either, because I'm not a religious person. Um, when I said I'm not a religious person, I religiously meditate. I do a lot of religious things. I like candles, I use stones, yeah, I'm guilty. I love beautiful rocks, you know what I mean? I like oh, here we go. Oh, get your hand right. Oh, see? My black and white and my red, my heart chakra, right? And this is my stone for negative energy, and this is one for clarity. Right? I'm like a kid showing you my stones. He's so nice. But so awakening, right? And I never heard anything like that when I was a kid. My parents never talked about an awakening. They were from the 60s. They were part of that revolution and coming about, and you would think that that would be like the topic, but really everything that's been carried over into us has really been kind of like so I all right, so now I got to backtrack and get really vulnerable here and say that I may have put my foot in my mouth. All right. So you may be 15 and you may know more about the Akashic records. Okay. But to tell me you're having a spiritual awakening now, that's just like, okay, cool. Um, yeah, I'm sorry I can't. But anyway, so so I've gone through all this life, and lived this life, and I had something that happened to me in my life that just made me everything changed overnight, instantly. And so I felt like I had enough time on my hands because of the accident that I was able to really um start to, let's just say, I had way more time on my hands than I ever had in my entire life. I was sitting in my own silence. And since I was a busy person growing up in my whole life, just constantly busy, it led my mind into a really I had to challenge myself to sit with myself, I began to understand about what validation was, right? That's a lesson and a hard one, like also the societal structures around me, everything, So what I'm getting at, and I don't want to go into a detailed story about that, but because that's a past life for me. I mean, that's over with, and I'm in the now. But I didn't get to that understanding until I had to do probably what you had to do, is go down the rabbit hole of what in the hell is going on with me, why am I feeling this way? So I just kind of wanted to get on here and say that it can be very challenging to take the advice of other people sometimes. I mean, even though it's kind of like we reach out and get little tidbits of this and a little bit of that, and then we put it all together and you go, oh, I think I'm going to make a YouTube channel, right? Um, and here's the kicker with this. While I don't discourage anybody from taking advice from anybody, but every in reality, if there's such a word, right? That's a whole nother topic right there, okay? That's a good one. But in our three-dimensional reality, and that's also another topic. Jeez, boy, I could just keep going with this over and over again. But in this reality that I'm sitting here right now, for me, for this, it's all perspective. It's perspective, and what somebody else's perspective is. There's no definite, like a proof, right? People in the very end go, well, you just gotta have faith, or you just, you know, even if you try to dispute or argue anything, you just gotta have faith. So nobody knows, right? And we're all just reaching, we're all just struggling. We all want to be loved, we all want to be seen, we all want to be heard, And so I kind of got to that realization sitting in my own funk, you know. And so that's kind of helped me to really put a whole new different perspective on, just living in life for me anyway. And so what's the takeaway, right? What is it that I think that we are trying so hard to be something um, that maybe we're missing something there, you know, like not only our own sovereignty in a way, because when we mimic other religious sects or something like that, and I'm not saying that's bad. Gosh, that's just probably going to get me in a lot of trouble saying it like that. And I don't mean that. And I mean no disrespect to any type of religious area. But what I'm trying to get at is that I've always felt like I never belonged with anything, anyone. I mean, I was so independent, even from such a small age, very independent. So I just did not click with, I never felt like there was a home in anything, in anyone, any person, any, like I just flew down here to check things out on the earth, like I'm not from here, I just really don't belong. I loved a lot of people, and I've done a lot of loving, I've done a lot of hurting, I've done a lot of this life thing, but I didn't really, I still today don't really feel like I have a home, like what I can call as my own. So if you're kind of like me and you're in that position where you just, you know, um, it used to be considered to be a kind of a, what's the word I'm looking for here? Not a very good thing. Like, let's say, if you were a ship without a keel, so to speak, just adrift. Okay. But I tell you, when I was a ship adrift, I had so many exciting adventures, and exploring new cultures and exploring into new territories of things. So I can't really say that I agree with that kind of thinking. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, he'll never amount to nothing. He's a ship adrift, or I don't know, whatever term. I can just hear some old guy saying that to me, right? And well, he don't have to be an old guy. He can be an old lady too, right? Hey, I'm older. I can say that. I can call people old. All right. Oh. Anyway, I can disrespect my own damn self. Anyway, so maybe you feel like that too. Maybe you feel like you just don't really belong. And so there's been a few of channels that I watch, that I kind of click with, and just to kind of go, do I agree with what that person said? Do I, is there something that, and each and every person has their own experiences, so there's no way that we can really ever truly dial in. And I think I figured that out, right? It took me a long time. And you're like, well, I'm 15 and I figured that out, Lee. Right? Good for you, 15-year-olds. Oh, I probably would have boxed my own ears. If I run into myself at 15, I guarantee I'd have boxed my own ears. Oh, we're just on top of the world. Everybody's wrong and we're right, I love that kind of knowing. That would be cool to have that kind of knowing again. But you get older and you wise up to certain things, and you go, I was really pretty. I was just, yeah, I wasn't very smart. So anyway, I feel like maybe I want to share that and just go, hey, if you're feeling like this uh, disconnect, that's a big word on the internet. Disconnected, you're disconnected from your twin flame, which, oh my gosh, that's wow. That's the that one took off just like a bunny rabbit family, right? I mean, I never heard the term twin flame when I was younger. I thought I met a lot of twin flames. Love is love is love. I love to love. But they were all karmic. And boy, that's another word, right? Go down that karmic road. My goodness, I could do this all day. All these words that are out there. And what's funny is I never heard them before. Like, 20, 25 years ago, maybe I started hearing certain things, because like I said, I studied a lot of esoteric and a lot of religious. I studied the Bible for a long time, and I went down the Anunnaki road, Mesopotamian kind of information for a long time, and um, UFO, and my goodness, people are just peeling off this channel. Or they even get started like, nope, that dude's crazy. He's like some Koresh dude. No, I'm not. But that's another topic too. I mean, that's like some charismatic person gets on the internet and people's like, ooh, he knows, she knows, she's got this. And I wonder if their life shows it or not. You know, or is it just for clicks? But that was a slap in the metaphorical. Yeah, one even metaphorical was true, my truth, but it's still true, right? Because I know now. Knowing. That's another word. We've gone down the knowing road. I know. I know. If I'd have said that to somebody when I was younger, I guarantee anybody on the damn block that was around me could have spanked my butt. You know what I mean? You better get that boy in line. They would have picked you up by your ears, at the time, and just whooped your butt. Didn't matter if it was family or just a stranger standing in the restaurant line. If you got out of line with some nonsense, well, they didn't deal with it. But so I never heard terms like that, right? And yeah, so call me a late bloomer, I guess, right? But really, younger people today have it so kind of easy in a way that it's kind of right there, so they're ripe for the picking. So I kind of went through a spiel where I clung to some things while I was going through kind of my awakening, and I guess it was an awakening in a way that I did not understand what was taking place with me. And maybe you guys felt the same way. Maybe somebody else out here in the www dot area feels the same way, not knowing. And I'm still going through it. Like understanding more about my own energy, understanding more about my own anger, my own traumatic wounds from whenever I was younger, and my relationships from the past. Um, reconciling um, the habits that I had that I no longer carry over, and so the need to try to find what it is that I am became less and less and less by doing that. And I think maybe that's the message for this, is just that I don't I don't think maybe it's important to try to find a particular. There are lots of tools, I guess, would be the way we could use it, is that there are tools that are available to us to maybe kind of help us understand. But I kind of feel like that, in some way, the information that we have is just philosophical, for obvious reasons. It is philosophy, but philosophical and handed down through the centuries, and it's just kind of transmuted into more of a quicker, easier, um, revised manner, so that maybe our minds can understand it a little bit better. Because I've peeled into some ancient text, and they are some hard reads. You know, I mean, I read writing of today, and you try to go back even towards King James Bible era, and it's like, man, that is just a difficult, even though it's kind of the proper English scenario, but boy, it's very tough to kind of continue on with that just because of the dialect, I suppose. It's hard to pronounce, so it'd be like me trying to start a new language now today. It would just probably just sound hideous and ridiculous, right? So that's kind of the way I feel about approaching some of these some of these older ancient texts is tough, so you really got to find some, some writers who have translated, and then again, you're kind of trusting what their translation is. So I don't know, I think we're in the age of, do I trust that somebody's even telling me the truth now, which is kind of sad. But honestly, I don't even think nothing has changed, really. I mean, there's been people lying to people forever and a day, right? For their own gain, or that they're just very charismatic, that they care about people and they think, well, this works for me and I want to share it with you. So anyway, that's pretty simple, right? It's straightforward. No mystery there. And maybe that's part of it too. Maybe we're looking for a mystery involved that, I could, I watched a movie that, the person held out their hand and, fire flame came out of it, and I was able to, sorry, I'm being facetious, but, you know, um, illusion and trickery has been around for thousands of years too. Um, so I kind of keep on the, when I'm reading and watching certain videos of people have put together, or taking in, you know, esoteric information, things like that. I think it's a really good thing to just kind of stay in the neutral zone there, take what resonates with you, which is what everybody does anyway. That's a whole nother topic too, right? We hear that everywhere. Just take what resonates with you, what chimes with you. Well, yeah. We should be smart enough to know that, hey, I like that person, or, I get the feeling that person's full of shit. But anyway, I'm just trying to get real with you guys, and just kind of let you know that I'm not here to fool nobody. I'm straight up, and I'm very vulnerable. I put myself out there. If I don't know, I will try to say to you, like I said, I make mistakes, and I'm just a human being, right? But anyway, so I appreciate you being here. If you stayed with me, and hopefully I'll get to see you on the next one. So.